make the connection here. It should be obvious to you, I think, between Darwin, evolution, the work I'm doing, and cancer. Because in cancer, we see the same phenomenon occurring. Chemotherapy has basically been a failure to first order. When chemotherapy tries to kill cancer cells, just like antibiotics try to kill bacteria. And the powerful principles of Darwinian evolution, and if you design the thing right, can come up with solutions to these problems very rapidly. Fisher's an interesting example. I like Fisher. He was, I don't know, what is he? He loved to smoke. He was a big-time smoker, right? He was a firm believer. This is one of the pioneers of evolution, right? He was a firm believer that smoking and cancer were not correlated. And he would give talks in the 50s saying they're not correlated. It's simply that people who want to smoke tend to get cancer. Right? He's a true statistician, right? It was amazing, right? Isn't that incredible? But if you look at this curve here, right? Do the math on that curve, right? Here's cigarette consumption versus time. Here's lung cancer. How long did it take? About 30 years between starting to smoke cigarettes as a kid, starting to get lung cancer in your 50s and 60s. Well, tobacco smoke is mutagenic. Your lungs are perfect deaf galaxies. A lot of little alveoli spreading the population, little numbers. It's perfect. Right? If you want to do evolution in the human body, I highly recommend a human lung and smoke cigarettes. Right? You want to experiment. Right? It just runs at a somewhat different time scale, but there it is. Right? Nothing could be clearer. So he was opposed to the conclusion that smoking caused lung cancer. It's very sad to say that his talks were funded by the tobacco industry. Right? He was actually paid as a consultant by the tobacco industry to give these talks. And I find that just astonishing. Anyways, look, folks, we could have the cancer rate in China tomorrow. We just simply don't sell cigarettes. It's easy. So fast food is bad news. You probably know that obesity and things like that. We started taxing overweight people and stopped smoking cigarettes. They have the cancer rate, right? Instead of spending $100 billion on drugs that don't work because they try to fight Darwin, we just simply remove the sources of the mutagenic things. China's making a huge mistake emulating the U.S. in diet and letting big tobacco sell cigarettes. But we're not going to do anything about it, are we? People are going to die. What can I say? That's going to happen. We're not listening to these lessons. Same thing happens in the U.S. So I think that what you're seeing here, that chemotherapy is basically a failure because it simply tries to deny the fact that the system responds to seeing these kinds of mutations and then figures out a way around it. That's why time and time again you will see these chemotherapies fail. I think we have to really rethink the way we go after cancer. The present approach is not working. Right? It's simply not working. There's a lot we can do right now with diet and things like that. But basically, the way we try to do it is we're fighting Darwin. And while some people may not believe in evolution, I do. And you just saw an example of how it can actually move very rapidly. And our bodies are classic examples of that. And that's why this technique, this approach, is, I think, basically doomed to failure. So where do we go from here? What are we going to do? We spend all these hundreds of billions of dollars on this, and the mortality rates are flat. And so what's going to happen? In the United States, we're looking at a really scary thing. Because cancer is an old man's disease, basically. All the men here in this audience, if they lived up to be 90, will develop prostate cancer. We already have prostate cancer in our bodies right now. It's slowly developing. It's a matter of time as the mutations build up and as the stress builds up. And an aging population, such as the United States, is happening. It's a brick wall we're facing because the way we're doing it right now, it costs $200,000 for these chemotherapy treatments to basically fail. And so it's a very frightening thing. And so while I was actually in Hong Kong on sabbatical thinking about this, I got a call from the National Cancer Institute, which wanted me to come to some workshops because they knew I was playing around with bacteria at the time, and they thought maybe I have something to say. And usually when I give a talk like this, I would get stoned by the biologists because they don't like somebody insulting Darwin. But I went to the NCI, the oncologists actually loved it because, of course, they deal with rapid evolution every day. It wasn't news to them that evolution didn't occur rapidly. So what the NCI did, I thought in a fairly brave move, was to decide that what they needed to do is bring physicists into this thing. You cannot beat Darwin. You cannot beat Darwin. So there's a clear connection with rapid evolution and things like that. And so it's not going to work the way we're doing it. What we're doing is just not working right. So what the NCI of this series of workshops was quite exhausting. I built a lot of free miles flying back and forth between D.C. and Hong Kong on sabbatical. Is they formed these physical science oncology centers to try to develop new fields of cancer research, to try to come up with new ideas, to take physical laws and principles and a quantitative approach and try to understand the emergence and behavior of cancer. So they started this 5-year initiative to see can we bring in new ideas, electrical engineering, Jim Sturm is working with things like that, to try to rethink this whole thing because the present approaches are simply not working very well at all, and they're sort of in denial of some basic fundamental facts. So it was formed and it's happened. I'm head of the Princeton University Physical Science Oncology Center. There's 12 of us around the country right now that have been formed. We formed a network. I'll be doing a call tomorrow night at 4 o'clock in the morning. We have our weekly meetings and stuff. It's a mixture of physicists and mathematicians, engineers, and biologists to try to rethink evolution for the 21st century and ask how can we redo things in a way that's different from what we've been doing, which is simply failure in many respects. So I'm the PI in that. I'm warning you, it's hard though, trying to mix physicists and oncologists and engineers into one pot and stir them to violate what I just told you. You're actually better off we're off in a corner working by ourselves and occasionally calling somebody up on the phone, but that's what's happened to the thing. So it's proceeding then. We actually have links around the world. Like, for instance, I have a former friend of mine who's at South Korea at Yale universities. He's now making death galaxies like the ones they made for bacteria that look very similar, only inside these things are redimensioned for eukaryotic cancer cells. We're now putting cancer cells in this thing and seeing, do we see, following these same principles, a rapid emergence of resistance to chemotherapy that occurs in the antibiotic world of the bacteria. And so these experiments are a lot longer, as you might imagine, but they seem to be working at this point. And we take these cells here, we put in doxorubicin, which is a very well-known chemotherapy, and start pumping it in. It'll first clear out these cells in this area here, and they'll die. But after 7 days, we're beginning to see the emergence of resistance to doxorubicin in this death galaxy as these cancer cells now regroup, evolve, and start to invade this other area. So it looks like at this point here that the basic principles that I tried to outline for you for the bacterial world and antibiotic resistance might also work for understanding the emergence of resistance to chemotherapy in the world of cancer cells. And that's exciting to see that. I also had a comment not only from Shirley's Putin classmates about my title about, instead of how, why did I put it in why? I also had from City University a comment about my English, about my abstract. Here's a comment. I feel a bit uncertain about the last sentence of the abstract. Appreciate the confirmation. And so what I had written was, I will explain some of the evolutionary dynamics to make this the race that it is, the red-green race, in other words, and may always be. And she didn't like this. So what did I mean by that? And by that, I was something a little bit darker, I guess, is what I was trying to get at. So we're learning that cancer is driven by Darwinian natural selection. In complex ecologies, Darwinian natural selection can occur very rapidly. It's a highly complex communal response. And the other thing is, it may not be obvious to you that I try to say the system knows what it's doing. It knows what it's doing. So it's possible that cancer is life 1.0. In other words, what's happening is, under stress, the system is reverting back to other genes, other approaches which allow it to survive under high stress. So what you see here is not a collection of mistakes. It's not a car wreck in that sense of the word. It's you going camping and starting to live life in a simpler way, right? So under stress, there is in our genes, only 1% of the genome is actually expressed. The other 99% is what we call dark matter. We don't know what it's doing there. But for those of you who are users of PCs, it might be DOS 1.0, right? So when your Windows Vista 7 crashes, what happens? You see the blue screen of death, right? And cancer may be the blue screen of death because every cell has one urge, which is to survive. So the system may be booting up a different operating system, which allows that thing to survive under stress. The blue screen of death. Unfortunately, I'm running a Mac, so that's not my blue screen of death. All right. But it's possible that's happening. It's possible that's what happened. That we're dealing with not a car wreck, but a much more primitive operating system, which is designed to survive under extremely tough conditions. Life 1.0. So that's what I meant by the race that it is may always will be, because it's always going to be able to draw upon that deep line, simple operating system at work. So I don't think the road up ahead will be an easy one that we're dealing with here. I think that cancer is programmed. I think it comes from complex underpinnings and may even have an evolutionary purpose. It's possible it does. In that sense of the word, and this usually irritates people, I don't actually view cancer as a disease. It's not a disease like catching the flu. But it's actually maybe something that helps the fitness of the species. That deep line operating system keeps the system going. And it's just trying to keep alive is what it's trying to do. And that is a way of increasing the fitness. So although it sounds strange, it's something that kills you, increases the fitness of the species. That's what might actually happen. So there is not only a reason why we age, there's also maybe a reason why behind cancer. It actually has a fitness advantage associated with the species, if not the individuals. So with that, I thank you very much for your time and all your kindness, sir.